Hello and welcome. You should be on page 47 of your quarter two pre-algebra notebook. We are going to continue identifying slope in this video. We're going to start with horizontal and vertical lines. So you can see here in graph number 5 that I have a horizontal line. Now, what is the slope of a horizontal line? We can calculate it by finding two perfect points, right? Let's see what the change is in two perfect points. So remember that slope is the change in y over the change in x. Well, if I choose this point and I choose this point, what is my change in y? Well, it's not going up or down. So it is not, there is no change in y. So my change in y is 0. If I look at my change in x, it goes right to, and I've got a 2 in my denominator for my change in x. Now, what is 0 divided by any number? Well, 0 divided by 2 is 0. And in fact, 0 divided by any number is 0. So this shows you mathematically that the slope of all horizontal lines is 0. How about a vertical line? Well, we can also calculate this using our understanding of slope as the change in y, the vertical change, over the change in x, the horizontal change. Let's take these two perfect points. When I look at my change in y, I'm going up 2. But if I look now at my change in x, I'm not going left or right. Left or right. So my change is 0. What happens when I do any number divided by 0? 2 divided by 0. You're going to come up with an error. On the Desmos calculator, it should come up as the word undefined. And that indeed is the slope of a vertical line. It's undefined because there is no definable slope of a vertical line. I'm just going to squeeze the m equals in there. M equals undefined. And in slope dude, of course, he says that's the worst word in mathematics. So the slope of a vertical line is always undefined. Now, in our last examples, in our first video and just here, we were using a graph. Well, we can also use table of values and points, which of course, points are in table of values to calculate our slope. In fact, we only need 2 points in order to calculate the slope of any given line. Remember that the slope is the change in y over the change in x. When I think of the word change in, I'm thinking of the difference of two numbers. So in order to find the change in y over the change in x, let's say I have 2 points. This is x1, y1, and x2, y2. So I'm just saying these are my first point, the x and y of my first point, and the x and y of my second point. My slope would be the difference of my y values over the difference of my x values. So let's see what that looks like with some examples. The first thing I want to do when I solve these types of problems is I label my points as x1, y1, x2, y2. And I always do this so I don't lose track of the numbers I need to put in the formula. Then I fill in the formula. Then I solve. And of course, if necessary, I will simplify. Let's take a look at number 7. I'm going to label, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. I do want to note here that I could have had these 2 points be x1 and y1, and these be x2 and y2. It doesn't matter so long as you stay consistent. I'm a creature of habit, so I always write it out this way, change in y over the change in x, and now I'm simply going to fill everything out. Before I even go there, I just want us to note that you need to beware of negatives So let's take a look here. I want y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 3 minus y1 is 3. x2 minus x1. x2 is negative 2 minus 4. Let's put this in the calculator. I have 3, and it's a negative number, minus 3. That equals negative 6. You can also put this into Desmos. So negative 6 is my numerator, and I have 2 negative minus 4. Negative 6 is my denominator. Remember, fractions are division. So what is negative 6 divided by negative 6? Well, that's 1. In fact, any number divided by itself is 1. So in the case of these 2 points, my slope is 1. When I look at number 8, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points to choose from. And you can choose your 2 points. You will get the same slope regardless of which ones you choose. So I'm just going to choose the top 2. And I'll just rewrite it. We'll say negative 3, 5, negative 1, 2. I'm going to label my points. I've got x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to fill in my formula. I've got y2, which is 2 minus 5, 2 minus 5, y2 minus y1. And x2 is negative 1, and this is where we need to be aware of our negatives, minus negative 3. Subtraction of a negative. You can't just say, oh, it's negative, so it's already subtraction. No, this is minus negative 3. You can put this into Desmos. I just happen to have this calculator handy. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And 1 negative minus 3 negative equals a positive 2. So let's take a peek here. And I've got, do I need to simplify? No, there are no numbers in greater than 1 that will go into 3 and 2. So my slope for this line, m equals negative 3 over 2. Okay, let's take a peek at number 9. I'm going to label my points. I start the same way every time. x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to fill in my formula. Oops, I meant to write a y. I was looking at the x as I was writing, and that distracted me. Excuse me. Over the change in x, y2 is 4 minus 0. 8 minus 8. I'm predicting I'm going to have a 0 in my denominator. I don't need Desmos or a calculator. 4 minus 0 is 4, and I know 8 minus 8 is 0. If you remember from up above, when 0 is in the denominator, I have an undefined slope because I cannot divide a number by 0. So my slope in this case is undefined. As you start recognizing the fact that vertical lines always have the same value of x, you can begin to recognize that if you have the same x's, they do result in undefined lines, and they are vertical. Same x's are going to represent vertical lines, which are undefined slopes. So that's just something you begin to recognize. On the flip side, if you have the same y's, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to do the math out. I'll choose 2 points here. And m equals the change in y over the change in x. So I have negative 2, oops, I forgot to write my points, excuse me. I'm so excited about it all being the same y's, I forgot a step. x1, y1, x2, y2. Negative 2 minus negative 2 over 5 minus 6. If I put negative 2 minus negative 2, I get 0. And the top, 5 minus 6 is negative 1. I know 0 divided by any number is 0. So that equals 0. My slope is 0. Again, I can begin to recognize that when I have the same y's, That will result in horizontal lines which have slopes of 0. But that's just something you recognize with time. That's all for this video. Thank you so much and goodbye.